27th, 2013. The first item for consideration is the adoption of the agenda. Mr. Grodecki, you have no additions or deletions?
No, Your Worship.
We're big on deletions here if you have any. So the recommendation is that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 27th, 2013 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. Under petitions and delegations, we have a presentation, and this is from the Director of Planning and Execution, and this is with TransCanada. It's entitled the Pacific Northwest Transmission Line. Chris, if you'd like to come forward, please make yourself comfortable. I'd ask you, when you make yourself comfortable, to sit down, and there'll be to your eye a grayish-green button there on the microphone. That will allow the people that are watching at home by television to hear you. Right.
Your Worship, my name's Ian McLeod, and my job is, if Chris says billion, I say billion.
Right. I believe we've met before, actually. Yes. Please go ahead when you're ready, and thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you for having Ian and I today, and it's a pleasure to talk to you about this exciting project that's looking to bring gas from northeast BC to the coast. So just to start off, to give you an introduction on who TransCanada is. TransCanada has been in business for 60 years. We've been in BC for 50 years, primarily in southeast BC, but the last 10 years we've been in the Horn River, Groundbirch, northeast BC area. We ship roughly 20% of the natural gas that is moved to North America every day. We're a large infrastructure, and there's about 4,800 employees in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. We take the construction and operations of pipelines very seriously. Our objective is to not only meet but exceed all environmental, safety, and regulatory expectations. And we understand when we build a pipeline that we do it for the long term. These pipelines have been in place for 60 plus years. We become a member of the community, and we believe in building a relationship based on mutual respect and trust, a long-term mutual trust relationship. And today I'm going to talk to you about the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Line. We have two projects that are looking to move gas from the west coast to the east coast. The one is the Coastal GasLink project. That's south of us, and I'll be talking about the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission project. So the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission project, we were selected by Pacific Northwest LNG to build a pipeline that moves gas from the Hudson Hope area to Port Edward. It's about 750 kilometers. The gas is in a gaseous state, and it gets shipped from the Hudson Hope area to Port Edward to the LNG terminal, where it's cooled and then shipped offshore. In the last 4 months since the project was announced in January, we've spent quite a bit of time consulting with communities, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities, and we've been trying to get as much feedback as we can on the route. We want to make sure we've factored in environmental concerns and community concerns, and in fact, since we proposed this route, the first 150 kilometers or so of pipeline, we've moved roughly 30 kilometers south, just to take into account the concerns with communities. Even most recently up and around Cranberry Junction, working with the Gitnao, we're taking into consideration their concerns and rerouting the pipeline. So we're taking a lot of time to consider people's input, community's input, and adjusting our route accordingly where we can. We hope we're getting close to where we can say that we've landed the final corridor, but we still have a lot of people that we want to consult. So we're holding open houses to get that kind of input. And those dotted lines you may have noted on the map, those are potential offshore routes. The solid line is our current filed preferred route. We have a lot of work to do on that route to make sure it's constructible and that we're able to build it. So we're looking at other options to get to Port Edward. So in the last 4 months, having spoken to a lot of community members and to many leaders across the corridor, we've received a lot of feedback. It's been primarily very, very positive. We're pretty pleased with the feedback that we're getting. But people have raised concerns, and these are concerns that I heard at the NCLGA meeting in Quesnel. So those concerns raised by the leaders there, I think, echoed very well what people are concerned about. One is the impact to lifestyle. People are saying, I moved to northern BC because I wanted to get away from the city. I wanted to be in this pristine environment, and I didn't want to see a mess of pipelines all over the place, and that's what you're representing. That's what you're bringing. Another concern that we've heard is leaders are saying during construction, a lot of people are required to build these pipelines. A lot of equipment has to move. You're really going to beat up our infrastructure, and then hospital demands will be high, policing demands will be high when we see mega projects like this roll through. Other concerns around this seems to be happening also quickly, right? What is the long-term plan? What does it mean to have, a pipeline in our backyard for a long period of time? And it seems to be happening very quickly. And another one is around employment opportunities. We've heard this should be a BC project for BC people, and we want to see lots of BC employment, and we want to see some skills development as well. And so what I'd like to do is talk to you quickly about my perspective on some of those, and although it's somewhat biased, admittedly, but I think it's hopefully a balanced perspective. So from a lifestyle and environmental perspective, first of all, we cannot build this pipeline unless we get approval from the BC Environmental Assessment Office. They are there to make sure that whatever we do will meet all regulatory requirements during construction and during operation, and that we've mitigated any sort of environmental concerns. So that's from a regulated perspective. Practically speaking, one of the things that we do when we route a pipeline to mitigate environmental impact, we try to route a pipeline as close to existing disturbances as possible. If we can put a pipeline near a road, a forestry road or a secondary road, or some cut block where the environment's already been disturbed, we're minimizing the environmental disruption. It frankly also makes it a lot easier for us to build a pipeline. We have better access. So that's one thing. And looking at the corridor we've selected, there's a lot of disturbance that exists. After we've identified that corridor, we spend a lot of time doing our environmental assessment, a lot of time and money to do that environmental assessment, to identify the risks and how we're going to mitigate them. Depending on the risk that we find, we might reroute the pipeline to avoid it. We might do a directional drill to get underneath a river if there's fish there, that it's a sensitive area. We will do construction in the winter. That minimizes the environmental impact. We actually prefer to do construction in the winter. So there's a lot of things that we can do during construction, and after construction, we try to return the environment back to the way it was before the construction. And in some cases, after a few years, it's hard to tell where the right-of-way is or isn't. Now, in terms of any sort of restrictions, there's no restrictions on farming. They're only if you're doing any sort of deep tillage, deeper than 30 centimeters. Normal farming activities aren't restricted. There's really very few activities that are restricted over a pipeline other than digging over it, and that's primarily for the safety of the people that are doing that. So there's not that many restrictions. And from a right-of-way perspective, we have pipelines going all throughout Canada. I've worked in Northern Ontario where communities have used the right-of-way for snowmobiling activities in the wintertime. It provides an opportunity to create some winter activities, and but it's up to the community. If they don't want that, we can discourage that. Then, when we're in operation, our footprint is really very, very small. We will need only 20 to 30 employees when we're finally operating, and most of them will be located at compressor stations. We planned initially to have 2 compressor stations on the pipeline. We don't believe in flying people in and out of communities from the facilities. You often hear like Fort McMurray, where the energy industry has people not living in the communities that are close to the work. We believe in having people close to the work. So our model is having people that work on the pipelines live in the communities. And then from an infrastructure perspective, there are some demands on a community when the project is being built. One way to try to mitigate those demands are through the use of camps. Some communities want them, some don't. It's a way to mitigate the impact to a community. There are opportunities when we have camps. The communities can provide services to the camps, so there's business opportunities. When the camps, they're there for a short term. We've heard these phantom communities that pop up wherever there is a camp. That's not the case here. Once construction's done, the camps are gone. There's no reason for them. And then there's opportunities to donate fitness equipment or water treatment facilities or things like that. One of the things too that we don't talk about a lot is we need to create access to when we're building the pipeline. We need to create access roads. So that could look like creating new roads or upgrading existing forestry roads. The plan is right now, it's tentative, but we're going to be spending millions of dollars on upgrading existing forestry roads and creating new roads. If you can haul a pipeline or a section of pipe, you can haul a log. So there's an investment that we're going to make that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure, in road access that will benefit businesses and the communities for many years to come. From a long-term planning perspective, well, the demands that a pipeline has when it's on operation are from a community are virtually nothing. We employ people, we spend money in communities, we don't ask for water or sewer service or even garbage pickup. And we pay taxes. The pipeline over the length will pay roughly $22 million a year in taxes. It's not a boom-bust thing. It's something that you can count on for many years to come. So we hope that you see that the long-term benefit of having a pipeline in your community is almost a guaranteed revenue stream through the taxes. And from an employment and skills development perspective, we understand that, we've heard, we don't want to see Alberta license plates all over the place, and that's totally fair. We understand that. To date, we've spent over $1 million employing BC businesses and BC people on this project, and we're still very, very early on in this project. A lot of the spending won't happen until 2015, 2016. So the spending is quite low in this life cycle of the project. We understand that we will need skilled trades. The industry will need skilled trades. We're working right now we're talking to schools, trade schools, to understand what programs exist. I really don't have an answer for that right now. We're still fairly early on in the project, and we have to do some work to understand really what are the needs in the communities. So from a project milestone perspective, we announced the project in January. We plan, our project description was filed with the BC EAO, and it should be posted on the website, I hope, on Friday. We plan on filing our environmental application around March of 2014. And if we get our approvals from the BC EAO and the OGC, we hope we can start construction in 2015 and then have the pipeline in service by the end of 2018. And as far as next steps go, right now we're in an intensive period of open houses, gathering feedback and learning what's important in communities. And we're starting to talk with businesses to understand what can they provide, preparing them for the bigger chunk of work that's going to happen in 2015. Like I mentioned, skills development's a priority, so we're trying to figure out what that looks like. And very shortly, probably in the next week or so, we hope to start off our environmental studies. And of course, there'll be further opportunity to provide comment, and we'll keep folks engaged and aware of what's going on in the project. So that's all I had. I hope I given you some perspective on the project and how I feel it's beneficial to the community and your constituents.
You have. Thank you very much. It was a good presentation. Are there any questions from members of council at this time? Councillor Ashley.
Just a question that I've heard from different people, because there's quite a few projects proposed for the area, and of course when there's many projects proposed, then there's talk of will there be one pipeline, will there be two, will there be three? And so I'm just wondering, preliminarily, I mean, I know you got to do all the different steps, but is there room for perhaps working with other projects that might get approval to have one that can kind of meet the needs of the various projects?
Well, that's a good question. I understand how folks in BC are inundated about all the projects that are being announced. I think it would make sense. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. So, our perspective is, and for others to think about is, you've got to look at each project on its own, and you've got to look at, for a pipeline project, I'm transporting something from one place to another, and I better hope that what I'm transporting is available at the front end and it's going somewhere at the back end. And we've the company that we've been hired to own and build and operate this project, Progress Energy, has the gas in Northeast BC. That they have that gas. They're drilling for that gas. And Pacific Northwest LNG, as I'm sure they'll tell you, they have the customers, right? And so when we've partnered with companies to build a pipeline, just like the Coastal GasLink project with Shell, they have both supply and they have customers. And I think you have to look at every project to see, do they in fact have supply and customers? And if they don't, then you need to ask, are those projects going to go ahead? So I know that we have that with this project.
Your Worship, I'd add a technical point as well. This is a 48-inch pipeline we're talking about, and the pressure is considerable. It's within code and it's within available technology, but the idea of putting twice as much gas through the same pipeline is probably not something that's viable.
Councillor Thorkelson.
Yeah, I have a few questions, and one is that I keep getting mixed up on these names. So you're with Petronas, Progress, TransCanada Pipeline, together the three of you are Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project? What are...
So I am TransCanada. Petronas, right, bought Progress Energy, and I'm sure you'll go through that, bought Progress Energy a few years ago, right? And they asked us to build a pipeline for them. So Progress Energy has the supply, and Petronas is the one that is shipping it out. And I'm sure I got that wrong, as they'll probably clarify that for me. But we are TransCanada, and we're building the pipeline. And the supply is essentially coming from Progress Energy, and it's being sold through Pacific Northwest LNG, which is a company that will own the LNG facility, and all that's owned by Petronas. So Petronas owns both the LNG facility and the gas supply. I got it right.
So who is Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project?
It's just the name of our project.
Okay.
It's just the name of the pipeline project. So we're trying to differentiate, because there's so many projects out there. We have the Coastal GasLink project as well, so we're trying to differentiate the pipeline projects.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a chart at work, but I didn't think I need it tonight. Okay, I have a couple of questions. One was a follow-up to Councillor Ashley, and it's regarding routes. I think that there's a total of something like 7 projects, possible projects, coming this way, let alone the ones to Kitimat. And if all went ahead, everybody's doing individual environmental assessments, and apparently everybody is going to have their own route. So does that mean that each water course is going to have to be crossed 7 times, right? It does each, and in 7 different places. And, are we going to have, 7 different rights of way with 7 different, with logging roads all throughout the area? I mean, you talk about opening logging roads. BC government spent millions of dollars decommissioning logging roads, right? So I guess that's one of the problems, is that we have so many projects going on, and I guess a question we have too. I mean, we know your competitors, but isn't there some kind of way that there can be some kind of linkage, whether it's coming with one opinion on the best route to come through, or is putting 3 or 4 pipelines along the same right-of-way besides profitability, is it some kind of a technical problem?
So that's a big question. So I would say that we are doing everything we can do to identify a route that works for us and the people that we're consulting with and the communities that we're consulting with. I can't tell you what necessarily other projects are doing, but when we're looking at building a route, we have to look at what are the community's demands, the environmental demands, and whether or not we feel that we can build it safely. And we have to do that assessment. For pipelines that follow us, they might want to take advantage of the access that we create. That would make sense to some degree for them. I guess time will tell, right? How many pipelines actually do end up going through, right? It's easy, frankly, to say you're gonna build a pipeline somewhere if you're very early on in the project and you haven't figured out if you can do it, and so we're doing everything that we can do right now to figure out, can we build the pipeline and can we get our social license, and that might be different for one company to the next.
And what about the route? Like, I saw your route. You're looking at going down with the water route, or you're looking like you're cutting across some Sian Peninsula. There's of course BG, whatever their transmission company, I'm sure is going to be going down to. They're preferring the water route. So how are you going to handle if both of you are just determining you both want to go down Portland Canal, let's say?
You can put pipelines fairly close together, right? So until we look at the bottom of the ocean to see, or what we do bathymetry to look at what's down there, we'll figure out what the route is. Just like in the mountains, though, there's only so many places where you can go, right? I think sometimes you see some routes that look somewhat common. With mountain passes, there's only so many places you can go, so it makes sense to be fairly close to one another. I'm not sure what the bottom of the ocean is going to look like, so I can't tell you where we are going to be in relation to somebody else.
So I guess the last on there is how are you going to determine what the cumulative effects are going to be between your projects and the other projects?
So, as I understand it, in the environmental assessment process, we need to determine what the cumulative effects are. So we look at the local and the area and national and perhaps international. I can't remember. I was reading through all that. So we have to do a lot of work to understand what that cumulative effect is. It's expected of us by the BCAO, and that's what we're working on right now.
Thank you. I just have one more question, and it's regarding employment. And understand that likely your 20 to 30 compressor station employees will be living obviously in communities and servicing your compressor stations. What I was wondering is most of your employment is going to be, I would imagine, with laying your pipe. All of the activities that are dealing with laying your pipe. Yeah, you don't have direct employment. You'd be hiring contractors. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So when you're looking at what kind of trades, you're really looking at what kind of, which contractors you're going to hire for what trades, because obviously, how are you going to deal with that? I mean, it's no good encouraging a bunch of students here to think that they're going to have long-term jobs on a pipeline if they can't get work with a contractor.
Sure, and we're not espousing that we're going to be creating thousands of long-term jobs in the construction. We're anticipating we need employment for 5,000 people. It's over a 4-year period. There are some very good skills that people learn when they're building a pipeline. There's some good trades, and if there's other projects, they can apply those skills to other projects. But the reality is that from a construction perspective, for our project, it's a 4-year period. We're not saying that we're going to create thousands of jobs for many, many years. We're going to create 20 to 30 local, long-term, very good, very well-paying jobs. If people can take advantage of the skills that they're going to learn in the construction of these projects, they can make a great career if there's similar projects out there, or if their skills are transferable to other jobs.
But they'd have to be hired by a contractor that you would be employing, right? And so if you're looking at pipeline contractors, I imagine there's probably not a whole lot of pipeline contractors. So it's really the pipeline contractors that should be looking for the skills connection.
Sure, and we probably won't be selecting our pipeline contractor for maybe another year. But we know we have to do the groundwork now. We've been hearing it from communities. What are you doing from a training perspective? So we know we have to do something. We can't just leave it up to the contractor. So that's why we're taking time to figure out what's available from local institutions, what programs there are, and what programs can we implement. So we know we have that responsibility. It's our pipeline that they're building. So we have to work with them in that regard.
Councillor Ashley.
Just one question for clarification. When you were talking about the property taxes that the pipeline would bring in, I'm assuming the $22 million that you were talking about is a provincial total, not the amount that could come to this area. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there are 5 regional districts and 2 municipalities, Port Edward and Hudson Hope, that would be the direct recipient.
Yeah, I'm learning not all tax dollars are the same. So.
Councillor Carlick-Pearson.
Thank you. In regards to, actually, Your Worship, Councillor Thorkelson stole half my question, so thank you. In regards to the training, are you going to be able to come back with a training plan for people to announce to the community what specified trades that they're going to be getting into or aspiring, going to different institutions? Because your timeline now, it gives people a couple of years to start, if they want to try and compete for those 20 to 30 positions, full-time positions, what types of trades are we looking at? So can we expect you back or a representative back to come and give us some sort of training plan that we could announce to our community?
I hope so, right? And so that's what we're working on now, right? That's why we have an idea what sort of trades we need during construction. They're not the same as the trades that we need during operation. So for operation, you need different trades, and we won't need that till, I'm going to say, sometime in 2018 when you can use them to help put the project into service. There's many different trades that we'll need all along from 2015 on, and I hope we can come to you with, here's what our plan is. I just don't know what that's going to look like yet.
Just because a lot of our community members and local people around here are wanting to get into different areas, and we have a lot of graduates going on to be, and a lot of the times they're going into something that might not benefit them in our community. So we need some direction from the industries to say, we need this, and this, and you will be, competitive to apply for these positions, in 2000 or 2018 or whatever. So, it's really tough for us to direct. And my most important thing is a hiring locally, training locally, and keeping our people, to stay in Prince Rupert. So if you do have some insight in the future, to maybe come back and share it with us.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
And I just would mention that
If you'd like to, there you go.
Sorry, I just would mention there is a website address, and our website is just opening. It should be, if it's not up yet, it'll be up in the next week or two, and that will include maps that will show you the route as it gets refined.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening. It's a very nice evening in Rupert. There's no requirement for you to stay till the end of the meeting. Just
Thank you.
no, that doesn't include the council. There's a requirement they stay till the end of the meeting. Next, we have a presentation from the Senior Advisor, Corporate Affairs. This is for the Pacific Northwest Liquefied Natural Gas. Good evening. Spencer, you're speaking, or is it Michelle?
Oh, I'm speaking now.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. We're just going to...
Certainly, whenever you're ready.
Great. I understand we have about 10 minutes, so I'll try and keep this
If you're a few minutes over, that's
okay.
fine.
Great.
These projects are of great interest to the community at large.
Absolutely. I'm with Michelle Ward from National Public Relations. You may have met her around the community over the past 12 months. I'm new. I was just hired about...
we are encouraging Michelle, because she's been here a lot, to actually buy a house. So.
All right, so actually, just as was discussed earlier, I can update you a bit on what's happening with Pacific Northwest LNG, the corporate structure, just to clarify matters. So in December, Petronas bought, it was approved to purchase Progress Energy Canada, and then so essentially what happened was 2 companies were split off. Progress Energy provides the upstream gas from the northeast in the Montney area, and they will pipe it down from through the Trans-Canada pipeline down to Port Edward through the Pacific Northwest LNG facility, where the gas will be liquefied and then sent off to Asia. So that's sort of how, in as brief terms as I can put it, how it breaks down. Petronas is the owner of the two companies that have been split off, so one upstream and one downstream. In addition, Japan Exploration, otherwise known as JAPEX, just bought a 10% share of what would be considered the entire project from the upstream and the downstream, and that's to provide domestic use LNG in Japan for a 20-year contract period. So that's good news. It's another customer for Petronas and for the facility. So I'll just move on quickly to the project overview, just in case you need a refresher or there's some new information in here that you may not have had yet. So essentially what we want to be doing is building a facility on Lilo Island. That's in the district of Port Edward. We're going to be liquefying natural gas and sending it over to Asia. What we will be building on Lilo Island will be the LNG facility, the marine terminal, which is the terminal that will berth the carriers, and it will be the jetty trestle, and then supporting infrastructure on the facility that aren't directly associated with the creation of LNG. So the facility itself, in the first phase of the project, as described in our project description that we submitted to the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, it calls for 2 trains to be built in the first phase and 280,000 cubic meter storage tanks to be built as well. So each train will convert approximately 6 million tons per annum, and we also plan, if built, to then build a third phase at some point in the future if necessary, and that will be a third storage tank and a third liquefaction train, and that will also be a volume of about 6 MTPA. We will also be building a power plant. Right now we still don't have a definite determination of what the power needs will be at the facility, but we should be getting to know that better in the near future.
If I could ask you, how far would that power plant be away from your conversion plant?
Oh, that's a pretty technical detail that I can answer it as best as I can by saying that the power plant will be located on Lilo Island. The exact distances I don't know, but they're designed to be as safe as possible. So,
thank you.
So now the marine terminal, like I said before, will be the berthing stations for the LNG carriers. So as planned right now, we're planning to build a 2.7 kilometer long trestle. That's some loading, offloading equipment, a control room, cryogenic infrastructure, LNG carrier berths, and an ancillary berth. Now, we specifically chose the location for this jetty trestle so we could avoid floor bank, to avoid significant dredging, and also so that the carriers could access naturally deep water. So the supporting infrastructure that we'll be building on the island include administrative and maintenance buildings, a materials offloading facility, also a 2-lane bridge connecting Lilo Island to Skeena Drive in Port Edward. We also plan on building a construction camp on site as well that will house at peak approximately 3,500 workers. So as I said, construction at peak, I'd more call it a bell curve that at peak there will be approximately 3,500 construction workers on site, but that will ramp up to the peak and then come back down. So at a maximum, there will be 3,500 construction workers on site. When operational, the facility will be employing approximately 200 to 300 direct employees, and you can essentially double that figure for just spin-off businesses' employment in the area. Now, for the construction camp itself, we plan on having it self-sustaining. We'll have food services that'll have catering that'll come from local areas, etc. But we want to be working with communities to ensure that you don't get the impact that you can get from some construction camps. We want to be able to make it as happy as possible for each community and for us as well.
So this camp would be self-contained. You'd have your own security.
Yes.
You'd have your own food services, your own housekeeping.
Yes.
Yeah, food preparation, perhaps your own laundry, or were you thinking of having somebody in the community do that?
Well, planning for the construction camp is still in its infancy, but essentially what we want to be trying to do is to be using as much local business as possible. Would it actually be housed on the facility? Yeah, it may or may not in terms of laundry. It all would make sense, just in terms of being able to run the construction camp as efficiently as possible. But to date, we're collecting names for possible contractors and vendors, and we want to be able to work with the community to use as much local expertise as possible. But I can't answer any of those, like a question like that, with a definite yes or no.
Right. Would you be interested in having your own recreation facilities there, or would you like to use the community's recreation facilities?
Well, again, that's a very nice offer, and I'm still trying. We're still trying to determine how the construction camp would be operating. And that's why we're here to talk and to understand whether or not it would be appealing for you to permit use of that, et cetera. So
certainly. Well, if you keep us in mind, we'll certainly talk again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So just briefly, this is the timeline for the project. So currently, we're in the government regulatory review process. We submitted our project description in January, and so we're continuing down the path to make our formal application to the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. We expect to get our draft guidelines that will inform us as we draft our application in the first or second week of June. So we're looking forward to those, and they'll essentially tell us what we need to be doing in order to draft a comprehensive environmental assessment that will be able to answer all the questions that people may or may not have as we go forward. We're expecting to have construction complete in late 2018 or early 2019, with first LNG deliveries to occur by then. It's an aggressive timeline, but we believe that it's very achievable. So in terms of our environmental assessment, specifically, we submitted our project description, and that was essentially the first step in the SIA-led process. The next step was SIA seeking public comment on their draft environmental impact statement guidelines. The public comment period for that portion has closed, and we're awaiting SIA to issue us their guidelines. So, as I stated earlier, once we get those guidelines, we'll know what we'll be working on, and once those are complete and we're satisfied that we've answered all the questions that have been asked of us, and we've consulted with communities and answered the questions that may have come in through the public consultation period, we'll submit our application, and we have a window of approximately 360 days until a decision's made. Now, that decision, if we stick to our project schedule, which we intend to, would be in the last quarter of 2014. Okay, so now I just want to provide some details of what we're actually doing, because I know that there hasn't been much information available, or we haven't had a chance to catch up in the past 6 months. So we're conducting an archaeological inventory, and that includes doing an inventory on culturally modified trees. We've retained Stantec to do a lot of that work. We're undergoing vegetation studies to understand what types of ecosystems are present on Lilu, and so we've assessed that approximately 60% of the island is bog or marshland. Our wildlife studies surveyed 48 species using the island as habitat. We've also identified the potential for federally and provincially listed species at risk to use the island. So we don't know if they're using the island right now, and that's why we want to go back and do more work to understand whether or not there's any federally or provincially listed species using the area. And we'll also be doing some marine reconnaissance surveys, or we have been looking at the intertidal and shoreline area to identify vegetation and marine life. So going forward, we have more studies planned this spring and summer. So we want to build on top of the work we've done. We want to fill in seasonal analysis. So at present, we've done seasonal analysis for the fall and for the winter. So right now, we want to continue doing seasonal analysis, including spring and summer, so we get a full picture of what occurs in the environment, what happens, so we can assess what plants are around in January versus what plants are around in the summertime. So we also are looking to install more remote cameras, and we also want to do further work on the tidal ecosystem. We'll also be conducting more work away from the field, so that'll include a lot of monitoring. We'll be performing air quality dispersion modeling over the next few months. So we'll be using existing data and gathering new information in order to do that. We'll also be undertaking noise modeling, so we'll be able to assess what type of ambient noise you may hear from the facility from different parts of the Prince Rupert Port Edward area. We'll also be doing similar modeling for ambient light, so using viewpoints and then essentially superimposing what the facility may look like in the evening, so you can tell what type of light effects will be occurring. And we've also done a lot of work in order to essentially take the facility as it's planned right now, put it into 3D modeling, then convert it back into 2D pictures, so then people can see from certain viewpoints what the facility will look like. It's a lot of work to do, but we have our first one will be available at the open house. So you'll be able to see what the facility may look like from Port Edward School, and you can see the storage tanks and the flare tower there, and be able to see for yourselves, what type of visual impact that the facility will have. So we'll also be doing some work over the summertime. You'll likely see some equipment arriving on or near the island in the near future. So you'll see some rig that will be near where the proposed jetty is, and doing some core sampling just to determine what type of geology is underneath the proposed jetty, as you can see on the left. We'll also have a rig on land, so you may or may not see a helicopter that will be taking the rig and putting it into different spots just to assess how stable the land is. And as I said, we hope to begin to start that in late June, and it'll take approximately 10 to 12 weeks. We'll be back up here next week. We have an open house from 4 to 7 in Port Edward, and we'll also have another open house on June 5th, just down at the Convention Center. Again, that's at 4 to 7. We'll have a lot of information available to the public, as much, if not more, as we're preparing than we've been able to do here tonight. So we really do encourage any of you to come down. We'll have a lot of people coming from different from the engineering field, from the company, from our management, in order to answer more questions. Technical questions I may not be able to answer, but we'll also have folks from Stantec that will be able to answer detailed questions in terms of environmental studies. We want to be able to respond to your constituents, to you guys, and be able to give honest and forthright answers to any concerns you may have, and also incorporate them into our future planning for the project, because we want to hear what you guys have to say and be able to accommodate those. So. That's all for me, and I happily take any questions.
Thank you very much. That was a very good, concise, detailed presentation. And of course, it goes without saying that if anybody in Port Edward was to give you a hard time, you could always consider Port Edward's poor cousin and come over and visit with us. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Thorkelson.
Yes, I was wondering, are you doing, I noticed that the pipeline part is going to be under BC environmental assessment. And you guys are under SEA, right? Are you doing a joint SEA-NEB process, or is that yet to be determined? How does that work?
Right now, what we have determined that will be in the SEA-led process. We have not yet determined every BC regulatory agency that we'll be working with, but we will be working with BC regulatory agencies.
Right. Is the National Energy Board part of your? It's not, eh?
That would only be for the export license.
Correct. So they hold joint hearings. I was wondering if they're going to be part of your SEA joint hearing.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Please go ahead, Councillor.
And I just have one more question. I know that the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency has just closed the public comment period on the scoping of the environmental assessment. Is the and I know that there's lots of public recommendations on what should be included. One of the things that has been of great interest to everybody is with the Enbridge project has been on tanker traffic, and it's not just the oil tankers, but Enbridge loves to point out that your big liquefaction tanker or whatever
carriers
boats are called, thank you, are going to have lots of bunker C or whatever fuel you're going to be using to move them. So is there, whether the SEA process goes ahead to include tanker traffic, are you going to be doing something about safety, are you going to be responsible for your shippers and your safe traffic?
I know that back in February, the federal government announced the Marine Safety Review Panel as well. That will incorporate marine carriers in LNG and or oil and gas. I really can't speak for Enbridge's statements in the past. What I can say is that the LNG carrier industry is remarkably safe. I can't pull up the number off the top of my head, but I believe it's 185,000 safe trips without a major incident. So we will be working with Turnbull, and So you can expand on this.
We will be participating with the port and potentially any of the other proponents going into the area in the Turnpole process. So that is the process that will look at marine traffic and cumulative impacts of all of the marine traffic that would be going on in the area, and that is a federal government process to ensure that it is all a safe tanker and LNG carrier vessels are all regulated, and that the traffic can be managed very safely in the port of Prince Rupert. Hopefully, does that give you some clarification?
Yeah, I've read a lot of Turnpole papers. And you're saying this is going to be a cumulative Turnpole process?
My understanding is that this one is going to be done in conjunction with the Port Authority and also with the BG proposal. Those are the proponents I believe will be working together. I don't know of any other. If there are other projects, LNG projects that get further advanced, they might become participating in it. But at this point, it's the BG project and the port and ourselves.
So that's the process that's not a public process. As far as I know, Turnpole reports are usually fed through the environmental assessment process or that's what I've seen anyway. So I'm wondering, what we're very concerned about is that we don't want any kind of shipper accidents, right? And if there is to be one, then what kind of response equipment do we have? We don't have enough response equipment on the North Coast to deal with the large shipper accident right now. And so the question is, are you going to be participating in, is Petronas going to be participating in talking to the marine community at least about what kind of spill response, what kind of navigational aid improvements, what kinds of tugs, et cetera, you might be using?
Absolutely. So as part of I believe it is part of the term pool process, we will have to develop essentially a spill response plan so that all of the spill response equipment and resources that would need to be on site, either managed directly through the facility or by other like the Western Marine Responding Corporation, that would all be identified. And also through the term pool process, that is part of the work with the Port Authority in terms of navigational aids and other changes that need to be perhaps made that can further strengthen the safety of the area. And so my understanding, and I will say that I might be wrong on this, is that is led through the Transport Canada in terms of the term pool process, and so that it is a separate process from the SIA process. And I don't have enough knowledge to know exactly if there can be a public participation process in that or not, but we can definitely find out more information on that for you.
Councillor Ashley.
Just sort of a follow-up to that, because I understand that the safety concerns and all of those sorts of things, but I know that this is a similar question that I asked of Enbridge, and I'm not putting the two projects together, but it's and it comes down to I guess my first part of the question would be when if this project goes ahead and you guys are shipping LNG offshore, do you have your own carriers or do you contract that out to somebody else?
It'll be a mix. Petronas has I think it's the second largest LNG carrier fleet. Obviously, we'll be using that carrier fleet. It would be Petronas's carrier fleet, but there will be circumstances where there will be other ships making calls that will be loading LNG and then selling it to their customers in Asia. So there will be a mix.
Okay, so I understand that if there was a spill and it's Petronas's ships, then obviously there's a financial liability and a responsibility. My concern or my question, I guess, is if somebody else is purchasing the LNG and then it's going on those ships and there is a spill. I understand that you're working, about responses and stuff, but is there a plan or something to help out or be financially responsible for those kinds of spills that could potentially take place because it is related to the shipping?
It's a difficult. Essentially, we're working with Western Canadian Marine Response in order to ensure that they, that there's an ability to react to any potential marine incident. But we'll cross into areas of legal liability that I'm not able to answer appropriately. But essentially, my understanding is that if there is the customer that has purchased the gas, they're the owner of the gas. But they would also, I believe, if they're coming, they're bonded in a certain respect in order to pay for cleanup. If there was any type of incident, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So essentially, while they are the customer, and once they leave, it's their responsibility for safe marine travel. It is an industry that does have a very good record. I hope I've answered your question as best I can without having to call a lawyer and to try and get through the gobbledygook.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I think that does. I think there is a level of comfort's the wrong word, but security in knowing that most of the LNG would be shipped by your own carriers, because then there's that connection. But I know that was a concern when somebody else takes on that liability, and then what happens if the pockets aren't deep enough. So, thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? Thank you very much for coming here this evening. Once again, there's no requirement that you stay. I should warn you, though, if you leave prematurely, you'll probably get mugged by the media, which are all here in full force this evening. So certainly you're welcome to leave, but with the disclaimer at your own peril.
You seem very practiced. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the next item on the Committee of the Whole meeting agenda, and that is the question period from the public regarding the city's operations. Is there anybody this evening who wishes to come forward and ask a question? Good evening.
Larry Golden, 1601 2nd Avenue West. I could answer. They told me if they went by the marine route, they were. Oh, I would say the main thing people should have asked and didn't was tsunamis.
Hold on, Mr. Golden. We're here to answer questions about the city's operation.
Yeah.
If you have a question about the city's operation,
I do. Thank you. We'll worry about tsunami some other time.
Well, just a point on
okay.
that, if you would. You can't expect this council to answer questions about an LNG project we just heard about tonight, but you're certainly free to talk to the people that are promoting the LNG project.
And I'd hope they had. I would have said that was the main question, one of the main questions that council itself should have been asking. But I can see that they wouldn't. Let me get to my question, okay?
Sure, that'd be great.
We used to get reports from the RCMP, the fire department, the civic center, building permits, etc. They used to be part of the council meeting. They haven't been in a long time. So I'll ask specifically, it used to be a year or two ago, the mayor himself would get a monthly report from the RCMP. Is that still the case?
Yes.
What about the fire?
The city council gets reports from all the various departments. The ones that you generally see on agendas are the ones that need some sort of approval. Otherwise, those reports are really taken as just updates.
And that's sort of what I was asking. I would have hoped that those would be put on some sort of a public website. But then, and here becomes the gist of my question. If you were getting those reports, would they be subject to FOI? And there's the real question. Since Mr. Dan Roden is gone, how are we going to be handling FOIs?
That'll be handled by the senior staff here.
So you've appointed an officer responsible for FOI, and so you just...
That will be coming shortly.
Okay. What would be your opinion if you were getting this report monthly from the RCMP? Would it be subject to an FOI?
The reports from the RCMP specifically have confidential information in them.
You could remove the confidential information.
That's not up to me, Mr. Golden, but we could refer your question to senior staff if you'd like.
Okay. What about the building permits? They used to be here. There was confidential information, but it was just removed. You didn't put the person's name and address. You just put the value or whatever. So, again, do you think we could get the building permits done on a monthly basis? And you've got a great website.
Once again, we'll refer that to the staff, and certainly if that information's available, it'll be provided.
Okay, and would you find out if it's not provided, if it would be subject to an FOI type thing?
Well, by the nature of your question, it'll be taken under consideration.
But that's what I mean. How would I find the answer?
You could certainly drop back another time if you'd like and talk to the Chief Administrative Officer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Don't forget the tsunami.
Is there anybody else this evening in the gallery that wishes to ask a question regarding the city's operations? If not, I'll ask council to consider the adjournment to reconvene to the regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. We'll move back to the regular meeting of council agenda. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of it, and the recommendation is that the agenda for the regular council meeting of May 27th, 2013 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Carlick-Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ashley. Discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. Next for council's consideration are minutes to be adopted. There's 3 sets of minutes this evening. The first are the minutes of the special council meeting of May 9th, 2013, with the recommendation to be adopted. Moved by Councillor Carlick-Pearson, seconded by Councillor Garon. Are there any errors or omissions? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. Next are the minutes of the special council meeting of May 13th, 2013, with the recommendation that they be adopted. Moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Garon. Are there any errors or omissions? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. And the last set of minutes are the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 13th, 2013. The recommendation is that they be adopted. Moved by Councillor Carlick-Pearson, seconded by Councillor Garon. Are there any errors or omissions? Question has been called. Those in favor? Thank you. Those minutes are also adopted. We'll move on to reports and recommendations. The next item is a report from the City Manager. It concerns the appointment of an acting Chief Financial Officer. And the recommendation is that Council appoint Ms. Corinne Bombin as the acting Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Long, do you have anything to add to that report?
No, I don't, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carlick-Pearson?
I'll make the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ashley. Any discussion? Councillor Ashley?
I just think it makes sense to use people that we have if they are qualified, so I'm very happy to see this.
Thank you very much. Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That recommendation is adopted. Next is a report from the City Planner. This concerns an application for a development variance permit at 1724 Atland Avenue. The recommendation is that the development variance permit application number DP-13-08 for 1724 Atland Avenue be approved. Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That recommendation is adopted. Next, we have a report from the City Planner, and this concerns an application for a development variance permit for the building at 308 Prince Rupert Boulevard. The recommendation is that the development variance permit application number DP-13-05 for 308 Prince Rupert Boulevard be forwarded to public notification. Is there anything to add to this from members of staff? No? Okay. I'll ask Council's consideration of the recommendation. Councillor Garon?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ashley. Is there any discussion with regards to this matter? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That recommendation's adopted. Next is a report from the Economic Development Officer, and this concerns a Northern Development Initiative Trust grant, and this is for a Prince Rupert facade program. The recommendation is that Council pass a resolution supporting a grant application to Northern Development Initiative Trust that will enable the creation of a Prince Rupert facade improvement program. Does staff have anything to add to this? I'll ask Council's consideration of the matter. Councillor Thorkelson?
I just had a question, but I see that Mr. Baker isn't here, so...
Mr. Baker is here.
Oh, he is here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How could I forget you?
I hope you weren't confusing him with Larry Golden.
No, it was all those LNG people. I didn't have a good look at who else was there.
Good evening, Mr. Baker.
Good evening.
Councillor Thorkelson, your question?
Yes. I was just looking at the second page of the where it says costs and budget implications. And it says it will provide a 25% reimbursement grant up to a maximum of $5,000 per building or project, but the total budget is $20,000. So that's only 4 projects. If we have 4 $20,000 projects, probably not too hard to spend $20,000 in front of many buildings in town. I was wondering if it's possible. I think this is a good program, and in fact, I was wondering if it's possible maybe to go to the Prince Rupert Foundation or somewhere else to see if we can increase the amount of money through other grants from other organizations into a pot that somebody can apply for. So they don't have to apply for 2 or 3 pots. That's all I was wondering if Mr. Baker maybe could, maybe already has, look to see if there's any other way we could increase this amount.
Mr. Baker, have you got any comments?
I hadn't actually looked at that option yet to top it up even further. We were under the gun just to get this one application in. So it's something that we could look at for subsequent years beyond 2013.
Please go ahead.
I'm just a bit concerned that it may only be 4 or 5 businesses that are able to participate in this program. Would it be a better idea to have a look at maybe a less reimbursement if we can't add the money, if we can't increase to the projects? Because I really think that that 25,000 is 25 or 5,000 is only take 4 projects to use that up. And so I was wondering if we were actually going to try, if we should maybe try to either make the total grant less if we can't make the total pot larger.
Is there flexibility in the criteria for the program?
There is. One of the things Northern Development expressed was a desire not to go too far below 25%, because as you give less incentive for companies to do it, you might not actually get that many applications. It is a program that we can apply to annually. So for every year after this, there's a likelihood that we would get funded again. So you could fund up to 4 facades per year, and that number can add up pretty quickly over a number of years. Preference would, of course, be given to projects that come in below the 25%, so you could see more than 4 projects done in a year.
Councillor Ashley.
So just a question in terms of how this works. I think I know, but just to clarify. So if somebody was interested in taking advantage of this, if we go ahead, they would come in and say, oh, I've got this project that's worth $20,000. They would apply through the Economic Development Office, and then you guys would look at it and say, yes, you can get the money, or no. Is that how it would work?
Yeah, so the structure would be that we would have an application form that would have a number of criteria, which would include getting approval from Mr. Krekik's department. And then we would have a committee that we would have 3 or 5 people from the community to have an eye on the project and have an approval committee, so it's not just one person making a decision.
Any further questions for Mr. Baker? Thank you very much. I'll ask Council's consideration of the recommendation. Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Guerin. Any discussion? Councillor Ashley.
I just want to speak in favor of this. I think it's good. It's nice to see. I know that with the new pooled funding approach, there's some new programs that NDI is able to offer, and this is one of them. And I think it'll be good for our community. And we've already seen some of the stuff happening with people putting up murals and other things. So I think it's great to have an ability to offer an incentive to people to do more of that. So.
Certainly makes the community more attractive overall.
Yeah.
Anything further? I'll call for the question. Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That recommendation is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Your Worship,
yes.
I was wondering if we need to have a direction to direct Mr. Baker in trying to increase the pot by looking for other funding. Not spend a long time, but to do some of it.
We could make that request of him. Mr. Long, would you like that in a motion? Or?
Certainly.
Councillor Thorkelson?
I move that we ask Mr. Baker to have a look and to see if he can increase the pot by accessing other outside grant funding.
It's It's moved by Councillor Thorkelson, seconded by Councillor Ashley. Discussion? Question? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That is adopted. Thank you very much. Next is a report from the Manager of Accounting and the Corporate Administrator. This is the new signing authority resolution. Mr. Grodecki, would you like to read that recommendation?
Certainly, Your Worship. The Council rescinds all preceding resolutions regarding access and control of City of Prince Rupert bank accounts, and that Council designates the following members of Council to have signing authority and the following members of staff to have counter-signing authority. The elected signing authority on the current account would be Mayor Masalem, Councillor Anna Ashley, and Councillor Garan. The counter-signing authority, we should amend it now to say Acting Chief Financial Officer Corinne Bombin, City Manager Robert Long, Finance Manager Christine Yu. On the cemetery account, the elected authorities would be Mayor Masalem, Councillor Ashley, Councillor Garan, City Manager Mr. Long, and Acting Chief Financial Officer Corinne Bombin and Financial Manager Christine Yu. And finally, on the U.S. dollar account, the elected signing authorities are Mayor Masalem, Councillor Ashley, Councillor Garan, and counter-signing authority would be the City Manager, Mr. Long, Acting Chief Financial Officer Corinne Bombin, and the Finance Manager, Christine Yu.
Thank you. I'll ask Council's consideration of that. Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Garan. Is there any discussion on this? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion's adopted. Thank you, Mr. Grodecki. Next is a report from the Corporate Administrator. This is appointing the City Manager as the Deputy Corporate Administrator. The recommendation is that Council appoint Robert Long, City Manager, as the Deputy Corporate Administrator for the City of Prince Rupert. Is there anything further to add to this? It's very straightforward. It's to cover off in the absence of the Corporate Administrator. Yes, Councillor Ashley.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Garan. And is there any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That recommendation's adopted. Next, we have correspondence for action, and there's a proclamation request from the SP ARC BC, and this is concerning Access Awareness Day. The recommendation is that Council declared June the 1st, 2013 Access Awareness Day in the City of Prince Rupert. Mr. Grodecki, is there anything to add to that? Any further background?
The last several years, this proclamation has come in front of Council, and Council's always proclaimed it as the goal of the organization is to increase the education awareness of making our city more accessible to people with mobility restrictions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ashley.
I just have a question about this, because a lot of these proclamation requests we get obviously every year, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm wondering and this is just a question, with things that are kind of given to us every year, I'm wondering if there's room for a longer term resolution where we could proclaim that it's Access Awareness Day, for the next, 3 years or something like that, just to not have the perhaps we can put it on our calendar so it comes up, right? If we, but just so that the organizations don't have to be putting in a request every year. So I don't know if that's useful, or maybe part of the reason that they're putting the proclamation is so that it actually is being said. I'm not trying to take away from that, but
no, it's a good observation. We've never had a request in the past for a proclamation for a number of years. And I've often thought that the reason they do it annually is because when it is announced, it gives some emphasis to it. It gives some exposure to it. I'll ask Council's consideration of this recommendation. Moved by Councillor Thorkelson, seconded by Councillor Carlick-Pearson. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. Those in favor? Thank you. That proclamation is proclaimed. We'll move down to the report, City Manager, Outstanding Council Initiatives. Mr. Long.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the only outstanding item is what you have in front of you, which is our attempt to make your life as a councillor easier by having basically a calendar. There's many of the events that we know about on the calendar. We'll hand them out at council meetings in hard copy and forward them by electronic means otherwise, and hopefully that will help you organize your personal affairs.
We'll move on to reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council. Are there any this evening? If not, I'll provide the mayor's report. I attended the Spectra Energy Open House held at the Leicester Centre of the Arts. The information about the project personnel were available to provide an explanation and answer questions. Maps were identified of the various proposed natural gas pipeline routes over land as well as along the ocean floor. I participated in a Community Economic Adjustment Initiative meeting to consider the approval of funding as applied for by any of the 13 coastal communities that made application. This program originally started as the West Cap Fisheries Legacy Trust to assist coastal communities. I met with the new chair of the Board of Directors of the Pacific Pilotage Authority along with the President and Chief Executive Officer. The Marine pilots guide foreign vessels in and out of Prince Rupert Harbor. Currently they have 3 resident pilots working at Prince Rupert and anticipate more pilots being stationed here as more export terminals are developed and the volume of foreign going vessels increases. Currently 407 vessels utilized the port of Prince Rupert last year. I participated in a gathering of gillnet fishermen to put a call out to the Western Regional Director of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans regarding concerns over increasing costs to fishermen for a new salmon species monitoring program, asking for a withdrawal of this program and a further review. It was questioned whether the program is relevant and why it is only being imposed in our areas and why it should cost fishermen 13% of their overall gross income. Councillors Thorkelson and Rice were also participating. I attended an open house hosted by TransCanada for the proposed routing of a natural gas pipeline to a liquefaction facility to be located on Lilu Island. The project is entitled the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project. Many members of City Council were also in attendance. I attended the opening ceremony for the first annual Salmon Festival and provided a greeting on behalf of City Council and city residents to the participants, organizers, spectators, and guests. Councillor Jennifer Rice was also in attendance as our MLA-elect. And I attended the Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional District meeting for the month of May 2013 and answered questions of the board members regarding the proposed boundary expansion of the city of Prince Rupert. And I attended the opening of an exhibit of photographs by the Prince Rupert Camera Club, and the exhibition is on at the Art Gallery of the Museum of Northern British Columbia, and it'll be there until June 30th, 2013. I've also attended the Prince Rupert Library celebration for the 100th anniversary of the Prince Rupert Reading Room, and the event was well attended and featured pictures and articles of Prince Rupert's early history. Some time ago, before some of the construction projects started on Ridley Island and in other parts of the community, I met with the various companies that not only wanted to create the work, but were doing hiring. I subsequently met with some of the contractors that were hired, and I asked them, after I told them that they were welcome in our community, to please be very conscious of the community and to support us where they could. And at that time, I asked them to pay the construction workers that were non-resident a living out allowance referred to as LOA, so that they could live in the community and live in apartments and townhouses and suites that were available in the community. They could buy their groceries in the grocery stores. They could use their own vehicles to go to and from work and have those vehicles serviced here and buy fuel here. And one company in particular called JJM Construction that's involved in the Ridley Island Railway Utility and Road Corridor has done that. And they've gotten back to me to let me know that they are supporting the community. They've even told me that now that they've done that, the people working for them enjoy the community that much more, and some of them are hoping that the company continues to get jobs here so that they can continue to work and live and become part of our community. So I'd like to acknowledge JJM Construction for taking that initiative, and of course they and their employees are deriving a benefit from that. I've got a couple of other things I'd like to mention, and one of them is that the city will be having open houses on Wednesday, May 29th, and Friday, May 31st. And on Wednesday, May 29th, 2013, from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Highliner Hotel, there'll be an open house, and there'll be members of council there as well as staff members to discuss the proposed boundary expansion that is being considered by the city. And again on Friday, May 31st, 2013, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. right here at City Hall, we will have an open house, and there'll be information available. And of course, there'll be people that can also talk about the Prince Rupert boundary extension proposal. So there's two opportunities. One's on Wednesday, May 29th, from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Highliner Hotel, and the other one is Friday, May 31st, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. right here at City Hall. The last item I have here is that the Prince Rupert Special Events is looking for volunteers for CFest 2013, and they say we have many positions available and the hours are very flexible. If you know of anyone interested in helping with the community festival, please contact the Prince Rupert Special Events Office at 250-624-9118. And they say here that some of the jobs that need to be filled are manning barricades, being an assistant while the parade is going on. You can help also with the setup and take down of tents. Even there's some light carpentry work. There's some sanitation stations that need work done to them, and there's also various games at which they're looking for attendance. So if you can help out for CFest, please give them a call, and you can pick the hours that you'd like to work. It's appreciated if people can come and spend a whole day, but if you can spend 2 hours or 3 hours at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, that's appreciated. And once again, you can contact them at the Prince Rupert Special Events Office, and the phone number again is 250-624-9118. I don't have anything further. Or there's anything further from members of council? Mr. Long, have you got anything further? No? Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Ashley, seconded by Councillor Garon, that this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you very much. Those in favor? Thank you. That motion is passed. This meeting stands adjourned.